When people talk about food stamps, it often turns into a debate about who deserves help, who's lazy, who's abusing the system. But is it really about food stamps? Maybe it's about what we as a collective believe makes a person worthy. Because underneath those loud opinions and political talking points is something much deeper, something most of us rarely stop to examine, which is our shared conditioning around work, value, and survival. We've been taught to equate productivity with worthiness, as if your right to eat, rest, or receive help depends on how much that you could produce. And that if you struggle, well, it must be a personal failure, a moral flaw, or a lack of effort. It's a belief so deeply ingrained that we barely notice it running the show. And that just get a job response that you hear so often, that's not really an answer, it's just a shield. A way to avoid looking at how fragile the system truly is and how quickly any one of us could need the same help that we judge others for. So, let me share a bit about my own story. Yes, I've been on food stamps before. I was the teen mother who needed them to feed my children. I used them again while putting myself through college and supporting my family. And even later, while I was working, I still qualified for them because I needed the help. And yes, you do have to qualify. The amount you receive is based on your income, your resources, and the federal poverty level. And when you're trying to raise a family on barely enough, those numbers feel impossible. I can still remember standing in line at the grocery store, feeling the heat rise to my face, wondering what the people behind me were thinking. I was feeling worthless, not because I was, but because of that judgment that lingers in the air when someone uses an EBT card. You can sense people's discomfort, that unspoken disgust that assumes needing help makes you less than. But what they didn't see was the full picture. The days when I could barely afford rent, when the power got shut off, when I was cutting back on my own meals to make sure the kids had enough. And the truth is, those benefits don't stretch through the month. Not even close. It's a constant balancing act, trying to make ends meet, choosing between groceries, bills, and gas. Maybe you have to live it to understand it, because the line between stability and struggle is thinner than most people think. If you've never needed help, well, that's something to be grateful for. But please don't mistake privilege for proof that you're more deserving. It's not that simple. It took me till I was almost 40 years old to finally find a full time job with benefits and stability. And not everyone gets that chance. So, yeah, I'm starting to cry. Those were tough times. So, when someone says they should just get a job, what they're really saying is, I don't want to feel the discomfort of seeing someone get help when I didn't. That's projection. It's the echo of an old wound, the belief that suffering somehow equals worth. That if you've had to struggle alone, that everyone else should too. But compassion doesn't work that way. And worth isn't earned through exhaustion. When we look at someone's needing help and feel resentment instead of empathy, what we're really reacting to is our own unhealed story. Our fear of being powerless. Our fear of being seen as less than. Our fear that our own effort might not have been enough. We live in a culture that glorifies independence and shames need. But humans were never meant to do this alone. We're wired for community, for giving and receiving support. So maybe this isn't a story about who deserves what. Maybe it's a mirror showing us how uncomfortable we become with vulnerability, both ours and others. So, take a deep breath with me for a moment. Inhale and then exhale. And ask yourself, What did I learn growing up about people who need help? Did I learn that they were lazy, weak, broken? Or did I ever learn to see them as human, as reflections of the same uncertainty and need that lives in all of us? Because when we pause long enough to ask these questions, something shifts. Judgment turns into awareness, and awareness turns into compassion. The truth is, this conversation has never been about food stamps. It's about the collective story that we tell about worth and who gets to have dignity. It's about why, in one of the richest nations on earth, or so they tell us, people still have to prove that they deserve to eat. It's about why our first instinct is to protect the system instead of protecting each other. Until we face that, until we stop judging those who need help and start asking why so many of us are struggling to survive in the first place, nothing will change. Because when we reduce people to their circumstances, we strip them of their humanity. And when we refuse to look deeper, we lose sight of our own. So maybe this is our collective invitation to build a new kind of worthiness, one that isn't tied to productivity, perfection, or constant striving, one that recognizes the sacredness of being human, of helping one another, not as charity, but as community. The system absolutely needs improvement, but the answer isn't to take away what little people have. The answer is to reimagine a society that measures success by compassion, not control, but by how we care for one another, not how efficiently we climb. So thank you for sitting with me today, for listening, reflecting, and feeling with me. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who's ready to see through a new lens. Not to argue, but to understand. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep looking at life through an insightful lens.